Hey there, you're listening to the Not So Breakfast Show with Sasha and Ish. Alright, welcome to the Not So Breakfast Show today, and this is the one where we are talking about the good, the bad and the ugly of International Women's Day. I love it when Sasha has a good rant.
For granted, and in fact in some countries in the world still can't do now, but by some kind of committee we have an International Women's Day, one day a year where we think about girls.
And you're going to get plenty more of those, so brace yourself and hang on. That's the show, let's get it. Alright, welcome to the Not So Breakfast Show today, and this is the one that we are recording on International Women's Day. It is about women, and Sasha, I'm going to call it, you're an international woman.
Yes, I am, Ish, and how good is it to celebrate International Women's Day? I'll tell you, it's not good at all. How ridiculous that we have an International Women's Day. It's like, if I look back on history, the last gazillion centuries have been led by men. Women have been in the background majorly. I mean, it's staggering how much men have ruled the world and how much women have not been allowed to do things that we just take for granted. And in fact, in some countries in the world still can't do now, but by some kind of committee, we have an International Women's Day, one day a year where we think about girls. Oh. Wow. Yay. I'm sorry, I can't get especially excited.
No, well, you're right, because it should be more often, and it is good that we can have an International Day on things and celebrate, well, in this case women, but celebrate things whenever it's International Day. But you're right, it is a bit of a weird one, because by now, we should at least start to have a little bit of equality out there. But yeah, I get it. It's not always like that.
There's room to go, and I think that the whole, it's sort of like, I like it, it's like breast cancer awareness. I'm like, everyone knows about it now. We don't need Breast Cancer Awareness Day. We need money that goes into research.
Yeah.
So I really look forward to the day that we don't have International Women's Day because the work is done.
Yeah. Or it flips and we have to have International Men's Day. I think it's been International Men's Day for like the last how many thousand years?
Yeah, that's the point, right? And of course, lots of discussion now about gender being fluid, and so much of what we call gender comes from sort of cultural and societal notions. And every time, this is my first rant that I want to start with. It's a makeup rant. I was talking the other day about International Women's Day and how we can make our workplaces better for women. And so some of the things that I think are reasonably non-controversial, people get upset about. So I'm interested in your opinion of these. So the first thing I said was, if you want to support women in your workplace, just supply free sanitary products in all of your bathrooms. Good idea, bad idea? What do you think?
I think it's a great idea. I know that schools are doing that now. And
yes, they are.
It's just the cost of being a woman just costs more.
Yeah. And so there's this concept of period poverty, right?
Yeah.
Where you can go into all kinds of areas around the world and you'll find that there is this whole pattern of girls not going to school at particular times of the month. And it's because their families can't afford period products. And so you go, well, I have to say, if this was something that was happening to men, we'd have probably sorted this out by now. Okay, so signed off on that one. Yeah. That's great. And number 2, what about if your company has a dress code that either directly or even indirectly has an expectation that people wear makeup? Should there be a makeup allowance?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't even know how to answer that.
It's tough, right? Because I started to go through in my head. I was going, well, that's because the thing that pisses me off is actually the time poverty, not the cost. So I think I told you when I was at Harvard, it came home to me really strongly that we would be studying right through to the night. Not everyone was studying right through to the night. Some people were just up late doing way more fun things. But Geeko Me, sponsored by the government, I make sure I read every single bit of paper that they gave us to read. So I was up well into the night. And then I'd say to the guys, okay, see you in the morning. What time is your alarm for? And let's say breakfast was 7. They'd set their alarm for like 6:45. Get out of bed, shower, get dressed, voila, ready. And I said, you know what, my dudes? If I shower, walk out of the shower, get dressed, and rock up to breakfast, without exception, you know what people are going to say to me? Oh, are you okay?
Yeah.
You look really tired. Are you unwell? Oh, because there's this expectation that I'm going to look on. And looking on means I'm probably going to spend some time putting on some foundation and mascara and moisturizer and skincare. And that's not exclusively a woman thing. But in lots of our workplaces, we say you've got to be well presented. And in our culture, the subtext or the code for that is girls a bit of makeup, bit of lippy, bit of mascara, just look fresh and lively. And I think if your company policy dictates that, then maybe there ought to be a makeup allowance.
I can imagine if a company did put that in, they go, okay, let's make it like the sanitary products. We'll have this tampon, this pad, this lipstick, and this foundation, and you all wear it.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. No, everybody's in peach lipstick.
Yeah, but I think what you're saying, I think that there is something in that, if there is an expectation. Because some corporates, if they have a certain dress code, they might actually supply some money towards clothing. So,
and you know, it's not really even about makeup. It's just about saying challenge yourself about the assumptions. So here's another good one. Men who are in corporate roles can buy 1 or 2 suits, change the shirts out, swap a tie.
Yeah.
You're good for the rest of the year. Now, some people will argue women put this expectation on themselves to look different and fresh and not just wear the same thing every day. And other people say, no, that's a societal expectation. If I wear the same dress every day, people start to notice. I'm like, but my dude, you're in the same suit you've worn for the last 4 days.
Yeah, yeah.
So the challenge that I lay for people is not, everybody going to pay for your makeup policy. It's just start to expand your awareness on how people are treated differently and what different expectations are.
Yeah, and that may be if companies are doing a clothing allowance, looking at the bias of that allowance. Because if I know that if I was getting X amount to put into a suit, like you said, I only need 1, 2 suits, and then I can just change out the rest of it. That's good point, Sash. Good points.
Yeah, I just think it's time that we really start thinking about these things. We know that there's a classic book out called Invisible Woman, and what it talks about is how when you don't have enough diversity, when they're talking about gender diversity, things get missed in the design concept phase. So there's a fantastic book out called Invisible Woman, and it just lists this whole history of products that have been designed and brought into the world that haven't taken into account the female body. And so the classic example is crash test dummies. So all the crash test dummies that are used historically were of a sort, they were male by default. And what that meant was seatbelts used to be really dangerous for women because the way they would position, you'd end up actually getting garroted, or all the blood supply would be cut off to your neck because the seatbelt wasn't adjusted for half of the population. There are so many examples of this. I mean, that's not just gender. There's a classic one that's just tragic, where these guys have got a soap dispenser, and if you put a black hand underneath it, the infrared doesn't recognize it. It doesn't work.
Man.
Well, no, it doesn't work on that skin color because you haven't designed it in. So I think, International Women's Day, let's just call it International People Who Are Different From Me Day. And just expand our awareness about what it is to walk a mile in someone else's shoes. And even not walk a mile. So I've been fascinated lately about disability issues.
Right.
And one of the things that comes up there is like, oh, you need to have an elevator in your building because if you're in a wheelchair, you can't get up to the 9th floor. And what disability advocates say is everybody benefits from the elevator in the building. There's all kinds of people that can't walk up 9 flights of stairs.
Yeah,
so, just turn your mind to what's it like to live in someone else's shoes and what kind of issues does that bring to the fore.
I heard a fascinating talk from someone that actually had lost their eyes, so they actually had to have them removed. And someone was asking, it was a child saying, what's it like to be blind? Do you see black all the time? And they said, well, you don't see anything. And they said, so you see black, like you see like it's at night. And he goes, no, it's nothing. He said, it's like you trying to look out of your elbow. There's no eye.
I mean, is your brain just exploding now when you think about it?
I know. I was just like, holy crap. Never even contemplated what that would be. But just the way that they described that, I was like, that was next level explanation.
That you saw things in a fresh and new light. Wow. So what are the times that you've wished that you were a woman? Like you looked at things and you go, oh, that'd be great.
Apart from the boobs thing.
Yeah, apart from just the boobs, so you could just wibble your jiggly bits from time to time just for the hell of it.
Oh, you know what? I don't think I have ever... I think the childbirth thing just plays on my mind too much. Like, to be honest, and it's not that I wouldn't want to be a woman. I'm just like that. What women go through is phenomenal. Like the stuff that they have to do to their bodies, that pain that they have to deal with, the monthly cycle periods, all of that. It's not like it's not a respect thing. I just don't think I could do it.
Yeah. So what you're saying is you think we're better.
Yeah, absolutely. Future's female, sir.
Well, I think what's interesting about that sort of thought experiment is I can think of heaps of times where it would just be so much better to be a man. So I could walk home at night alone. I mean, if I was a big man, if I was a big fighting strong man, I could run, I could exercise whenever I wanted to without worrying about safety. I could just piss against a tree, which is just like, how amazing is that to just be able to know, doesn't matter where you go, there's just somewhere that you can pull up and, release the snake, water the lizard, whatever you call it, right? Whereas that's not the same for women. I can go into any kind of meeting and not have people wonder if by default I'm the secretary. Like there's a whole heap of things that comes as beneficial, and obviously there's some downsides as well. But International Women's Day is not the day to reflect on how hard it is to be a man. It's to reflect on what can we do to not even so much celebrate women, but to bring our awareness to the stuff that gets in the way of women absolutely succeeding and being as magnificent as they can be in the workplace.
Yeah, and you're right about that, just that exercise thing. Like I went for a walk at 6:30 this morning and it was dark. And I obviously know the sun's going to be coming up soon, but it was dark. And I caught myself walking through the park thinking, oh, I wouldn't probably feel comfortable, Joe, doing this at this time. And it actually occurred to me, but I didn't even think for a second, oh, there might be someone following me. So, yeah, that's really good awareness.
Yeah, and you're a good runner. So that's lucky. You're going to be able to outpace them. You're going to be able to get them.
I think I used to be before my hip operation. Now it's like I'm a strong limper.
No, you just have like $40 that you carry with you. So if anyone comes near, you go, just take my money.
Just take
my money and leave me alone. That would be great. Thanks. Yeah, we had a bit of a furore in New Zealand here a couple of days ago because one of our largest corporations called Fonterra, it's our big dairy company, they had a special panel for International Women's Day, and it was all about how to be a good ally, so how to help women in your workplace. And what was super cool about that is they just had all men on their panel, and so we call that a manel. And in fairness, it was one of many things that they were doing, but they just got torn a new one from people who were like, nah, you do not need to have a whole group of men talking to us all about how amazing they are at being a good ally. But in actual fact, there are things that men can do. And I wonder, can you think of any that you've been able to do both in your workplace or at home where you go, how do I advance our women, girls?
Yeah, one of the things I've done strategically when I'm presenting is I use female dominant images. That's something I've learned from you. You kind of switch that on for me. I try to, whenever I'd say like a CEO, I'd try to say, and she would, like I've tried to get that into the narrative, and it's hard. The image is not so much like I've just have a, that is just a filter thing now. I'm looking at image, I'm kind of going, trying to make sure that it's not just male dominant images that end up being represented because I'm speaking. So
yeah, so I mean, if we tell that story, I think what happened once, if I remember it right, is you had a slide deck. You said, hey, can you look at my slide deck for me? I said, no worries. And as I went through it, at the end, I said, oh, you probably have, maybe you don't realize, but every photo you've used or every background image, they're all men.
Yeah.
And it was like you just hadn't seen it. And possibly I might not have seen it. But I noticed that when our insurance agent, I feel like I've told you this before, but I'm going to tell it again. Our insurance agent every year sends us a calendar and every month has a quote. And every year I look to see if there's any quotes by women. And maybe 1 out of 12. And I'm like, I don't care. Take your calendar back. I'm not just all about gender, like, oh, let's just raise women up all the time. But I'm like, we make up half the world. And if you want to keep shoving what men from 100 years ago thought or said once down my throat, oh, but they were great men. Yeah, and there were hundreds and thousands and millions of great women who were just in the kitchen being made to cook or have 50 babies and, 10 dead ones until they gave you a live one, because those were the times. So we don't know what we missed. We don't know the women who may have been amazing and said amazing things back then. So take your 12 quotes of men and stick them up your jacksie. That's kind of that's the response that it brings in me.
We'll be right back.
If there was one skill that could double your income, advance your career, and increase your ability to influence, it is the skill of presenting. Whether it's on stage, in the boardroom, or at a job interview, the 30-Minute Presenter program will help take you to the next level. So check out our Instagram page, click the link in the bio, and get started on the 30-Minute Presenter program. Yeah. I know one of the things I've tried to do, even with the podcast I listen to, I tend to try to listen to female-produced or female-presented podcasts. And so Amy Porterfield or My Therapist Ghosted Me, or just even having that awareness to being open to women basically giving advice and coaching, I think is really, really helpful.
Okay, so let me give you a pet hate on International Women's Day. And that's where, when we are trying to teach men to widen their viewpoint and to think about their biases they might not even be aware of that they have, we say, oh, just think about your wife, what the opportunities you'd want for her, or think about your girls that you would like them to have these opportunities. And I say, no. My right to exist and have opportunities is not dependent on you being able to visualize me as someone you know and love. You ought to be able to empathize with me as a fellow human being, not as someone that has a relationship with you. And so now you go, oh, I hadn't thought about that. If that was my daughter, I'd feel terrible.
Yeah.
It's a subtle distinction, but it's a really important one. That your ability to think about how other people might be experiencing the world isn't dependent on whether you have anyone like that in your life.
Yeah.
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 Now I just sound angry. I might be a little bit angry. Temperature in your office tends to be male dominant. So all our offices are too cold. As women feel the cold more. So warm them up.
As you know, going through menopause. It's like, but no, you're right. It's freezing in offices, and I'm leaning towards the female temperature then because I want it warmer.
I think it's also really worthwhile looking at what do you do for your team building and your team bonding. Heaps of corporates have golf day, yay, or drink some beers, yay, go karting, camping in the bush. And you might say, oh, those are gender neutral. So's knitting. But you're never going to do that as an activity. So is crafting. And why not? Why not do actually things that are really not just gender neutral? What about just doing things that are actually really great for women and the men for once can just come along and enjoy it?
Yeah.
For what it is. Because I tell you what, I have watched hundreds and hundreds of games of men playing rugby and men playing football. So now that the Women's World Cup is in New Zealand at the moment for cricket, I'm like, let's watch some cricket then. That'd be good. We love cricket. Don't we? We all love cricket. Oh, you don't love this cricket? Oh, okay. Interesting.
To be fair, I hate all cricket equally. If that.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah.
Actually, but even I think, like, just as a guy looking at filters and the way that we see things, because I like the way you say the way we view the world or the way we view our experience. Like even the term, hey guys, like I've tried to stop emailing, hey guys, I always say, hey team now, because actually people might hear that term guys and just go, oh, that's a gender neutral term. But then someone said to me, oh, you should ask a guy how many guys he's sleeping with. And I was like, oh, actually, that's pretty humorous. So, but just even that where we might be saying something and not even aware of the terminology that we're using. That was just another one. I thought, I'm going to try and drop that.
I think there's a couple of things there, because if you go, well, it's ladies and gents, guys and gals, right? Those are two kind of sets. So if guys is in fact gender neutral, then you could just say, hey, gals.
Yeah.
Just say that to everybody and see that's your test of whether things actually are neutral or not. And there's a lot of talk about not getting hung up around language. So there's academic theory that says when you focus on the language, you end up missing the meat of the message. And I don't think that's true. I think the language is important. But I also think even when there are gender neutral terms, our society tells us what to expect. So if I say to you, I'm visiting my architect this afternoon, most people have a mental picture that my architect will be a man. Now, there's nothing in the word architect that implies it's a man. Or, as my mum likes to say, I spoke to the manageress. I said, I think you spoke to the manager, Mum. That was a manageress. I'm like, no. But the idea that architect is loaded with a gender is a much bigger problem and challenge to solve than just. So language is important, but also so is the entire framing that we have about who gets to be what. So some of the language that's interesting about girls in particular is we say that girls are bossy and bossy is bad. Bossy is bad. If there's a girl who's 7 and she's taking charge, bossy. If it's boys who are taking charge, we go, oh, they've got great leadership potential. Look at the leadership they show. And we really have to check in with ourselves to say, is there any carryover from the way that we were raised or what the expectations of us were that leads us to carry that on? In fact, one of the, we don't really want to get massively into religion because that would be that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But I know that once I growing up in a really heavily churched environment, that one of the things that really stuck out for me, and I remember this so clearly when I was about 13, we kept getting sermons about how the man is the head of the household and, women, wives, obey your husbands. And the balance was always, yes, but husbands have to love your wives and look after them. And so it's a nice balance. And I remember thinking this really clear. I mean, I was an arrogant shit. I'm not proud of this thought, but I was 13. And I remember thinking, so far in my life, I'm just about the smartest person I know. I can't think of a single boy I've met who's smarter than me.
Yeah.
So God would be pretty stupid to make me submit to that. And that's when I started really thinking about, what do I think about the whole God thing? Yeah. It was one of my first things where I was like, how could the plan be that the idiots in my youth group, I have to go, oh, whatever you say, darling.
Yeah.
It was an interesting kind of mind explosion for me.
Oh, I like that. So the way you talked about that job title being loaded reminds me of that old riddle, and it was around years ago, but I remember people would take a long time to figure it out. So this father and son are in a car accident, and they both get rushed off to the hospital, and they go into separate rooms and the surgeons are about to start, and the surgeon that's got the son says, I can't operate on this boy, he's my son. And it's like, well, how can that be if the father's in the other room? And that was the riddle. And then you had to figure it out. And of course, if you were smart, you knew that the surgeon was the mother. But often people didn't default to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And these days, thankfully and mercifully, there's so many different combinations of families that gets thrown out the door. Even more so, even more challenging when the default is straight white male. That's you challenge your thinking around all of that stuff. Yeah, so I suppose my main message on International Women's Day is women are amazing and we need guys who can be great allies for us. And think about what that means. What does it mean in your family to make some more space for the girls and the women and your family? I know the single biggest thing that you can do if you want to help women get ahead is to pull your weight at home. That's a really good thing because so many women are doing double shifts. They're running their household and they're running their family life. They're doing all of the emotional labor. We've talked before about who does all the Christmas cards, who does all that stuff. So International Women's Day is really useful to reflect and say, how can I be helpful? And it's not just about saying, oh, women, elevate them. It's about saying if half of your workforce, if half of your family, if half of the world is not getting the same opportunity and is not being encouraged in the same way, then that doesn't lead to optimal success.
Well, I'm not sure if this is linked to International Women's Day, but I did watch King Richard the other day, which is...
Did you like it?
Well, I did actually, but I'd be interested in hearing your twist on it if you've heard it, because obviously, for those of you that haven't watched that movie yet, Will Smith playing Serena and Venus Williams' dad, and I kind of had the urban legend around what the dad was like, but actually when you see this movie, as much as he was probably overbearing and fairly intimidating character within the family, he just wanted the best for those girls. In fact, the best for all his girls, and was like hell-bent on this is the plan and they're going to get the best opportunity and be the best in the world at what they do.
And who's laughing now, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet. I've seen the shorts for it, and I've read quite a lot around it. And again, it challenges your bias, right? Because people like Maria Sharapova or Sharapova is I'm just learning how to say it. Yeah, but Maria Sharapova, same thing. Incredibly, basically anybody who's made it as a tennis player has an overbearing parent who pushes them hard. The Andre Agassi story is amazing. But again, there's this whole kind of racist underbelly in what was going on both with the Williams sisters and with Tiger Woods when Tiger Woods was breaking through, in golf. So fascinating to see. And I mean, one of the things that I love about the story of Malala Yousafzai is the way it was her father who really took the first stand, because in her village, boys' names were placed on the tree. And it was her father who said, no, I'm placing my daughter's name on the tree. And he really set her on the path, for greatness. And so, if women are going to get ahead, we absolutely need men who are on board going, let's go, I will help you.